Thou shalt not be surprised that thou findest thyself in a fine-tuned universe. For if the universe was not finely tuned, thou wouldest not be here to make thine observation. Thus says the Anthropic Principle. Welcome to AJ Sports with Ezekarel, the Unapologetics Bold Apologetics podcast. This is your space to grow in faith, defend what you believe, and respond to hard questions with wisdom and truth. Let's dive in, listen, and be edified. On our ongoing Origin series, we are looking at the case for intelligent design. And one of the scientific arguments that supports the case for intelligent design is the fine-tuning argument. And you'll recall that I said that the fine-tuning argument says that the physical constants of the universe, like gravity, speed of light, and strength of nuclear forces, are so precisely balanced that even tiny changes would make life impossible. Meaning that these physical constants and quantities guiding the universe have been finely tuned to permit and sustain life in this universe. But then the Anthropic Principle says we shouldn't be surprised that we are seeing all of these things, because if the universe was not finely tuned, then we won't be here to make our observation that the universe is finely tuned. The Anthropic Principle says that we can't observe universes that are not conducive for the existence of life, because if it were not conducive for life, we couldn't observe it in the first place. So our existence acts as a kind of selecting factor on what universe we can actually observe. And it is only a fine-tuned universe that we will be able to observe. The Anthropic Principle isn't saying that our observing a finely tuned universe is the same as saying we create the universe by our observation. For instance, the Anthropic Principle isn't saying the universe is finely tuned because humans exist, but rather life exists because the universe is finely tuned and we shouldn't be surprised to observe life. But there's a strong Anthropic Principle known as SAP, which says the universe must have those life-permitting conditions, which means it must be finely tuned because the existence of conscious life is somehow built into the nature of the universe. Which brings up the question, does the universe have its own consciousness? And we'll examine these thoughts later on in this episode. For those who hold to the weak Anthropic Principle, that's the principle that says we shouldn't be surprised that we observe a finely tuned universe. They most times combine this principle with the multiverse theory that says that there are multiple universes in the multiverse, and even if many of these universes are life prohibiting, because of the large number of universes that exist in the multiverse, there is a guarantee that one of those universes would be life permitting. And since that universe will be life permitting, it would also be finely tuned for life. Therefore, there is no need to attribute fine-tuning to intelligent design, since by necessity or chance, a finely tuned universe would definitely appear. However, does the multiverse exist? We'll look at that as we proceed in this episode. Some might ask that didn't we just get lucky that the universe is finely tuned and it supports life? They might even give the analogy of a lottery game with over 1 million contestants, and the probability or improbability of any one person winning that lottery game is very high. However, one person must definitely win the lottery game. And whoever that person is, he must not say that because he won the lottery game, therefore the lottery was designed specifically for him to win that lottery. That would be a wrong conclusion. Therefore, it is the same way that it is wrong to decide that because we find ourselves in a finely tuned universe, therefore, it had to have happened by intelligent design. But this is a wrong analogy and a misunderstanding of the fine-tuning argument. The fine-tuning argument does not say that because of the high improbability of a fine-tuned universe existing, but then it exists, therefore it had to be created by an intelligent designer. No. The fine-tuning argument deals with the improbability that whatever universe exists would be a life-permitting universe rather than a life-prohibiting one. So we should ask this question: why is there a finely tuned universe for life? And how come this is the only known observed universe that exists? How come it is finely tuned for life and not finely tuned to prohibit life? But then, this problem seems to be taken care of with the proposition of a multiverse. The belief in a multiverse is beyond science and more of metaphysics because there are no physical or known evidences supporting the idea of a multiverse. The multiverse cannot be detected, observed, measured, or proved. Another question is this: can't the universe come into existence from nothing? Quentin Smith, a philosopher, said this: the universe came from nothing, by nothing, and for nothing. His argument was that the most reasonable conclusion about the origin of the universe is that the universe began to exist without a cause or for no purpose. But this isn't true. However, what about things that currently exist but never began to exist? Stephen Hawking, a theoretical physicist, said that things like the laws of nature, the laws of gravity, have always been in existence. But William Lane Craig, an American philosopher, addresses this issue by stating an obvious fact. The laws of nature, like the law of gravity or even numbers, are not things that come into existence. They exist as mathematical equations, properties, or propositions, and they either become true or false. William Lane Craig, who is also a Christian apologist, believes that these laws of nature exist in the mind of God, and some or all of those laws became true when God decided to bring the universe into existence with the current reality we live in. But then, there is another theoretical physicist, Lawrence Krauss, who says that he can show that the universe truly came from nothing. However, again, William Lane Craig addresses this issue by revealing that what Lawrence Krauss describes as nothing is a quantum mechanical vacuum. But this isn't nothing. It's a sea of fluctuating energy. In quantum mechanics or quantum physics, you cannot literally get something from a literal nothing. Things do not come into existence from literally nothing, no matter how small or microscopic they are. Let's move to another objection. The universe caused itself to exist. This is a view that Daniel Dennett, an atheist philosopher, had. He said the universe caused itself to exist or came into existence from something almost microscopic as nothing at all. And the way he puts it is, the universe had a non-miraculous stunt. The universe was not created by any god or divine being responsible for intelligent design. It's all credited to the universe itself. But for something to cause itself to exist, it has to be in existence. Simply put, for the universe to cause itself to exist, the universe has to be in existence to cause the universe to exist. This is a fallacious statement and an illogical one at that. This means that the cause of the universe is outside itself. The cause of the universe has to be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, enormously powerful, have a mind of its own, which William Lane Craig describes as an unembodied mind. In explaining the possibility of the universe causing itself to exist, some have attributed consciousness to the universe. However, only living beings can have some form of consciousness. Even if the universe had some form of consciousness, this would not be adequate for the universe to create itself, because the universe would also need to have a mind capable of storing all the required information necessary for the fine-tuning of the universe. The universe would also need to have all the power it needs to create itself as it should be. This is close to considering the universe a conscious living being. However, this is not a mainstream scientific belief at all. Let's consider another question. Would life be possible with different physical constants and quantities guiding the universe? Are there scientific studies showing the possibilities of a different form of life existing if these fine-tuned properties of the universe are adjusted in other ways or have a completely different set of values for each property? This is a very big question. And the best way to answer this question is that the range of life-permitting values compared to the range of values for which we can make predictions on whether life will be permitted or prohibited is infinitely small. There might be other possibilities when these properties are set at extreme values beyond the prediction zone, but the possibilities are completely unknown. However, in the life-permitting or prohibiting prediction zone, the properties for a life-permitting universe is extremely small when compared with the properties for a life-prohibiting universe. The central part of the fine-tuning argument is that all of these properties were finely tuned from the first attempt at the existence of this universe, because there are no scientific evidence for a failed attempt at a fine-tuned or life-permitting universe. Let us consider this example. If we were to adjust the mass of the Earth, this would definitely contribute to an increase in the rotation speed of the Earth on its axis and the revolving speed of the Earth around the Sun. This will definitely have an impact of the speed of the wind flow on Earth. This will also contribute to the amount of gravitational pull on the Earth, as well as affecting the gravitational pull the Earth has on the Moon. And the cause and effect of just adjusting only one property of a fine-tuned universe would definitely lead to making more and more adjustments of a finely tuned universe, which will eventually lead to chaos and disorder. Therefore, a small amount of change to any of the fine-tuned properties of the universe would lead to a greater impact on the universe and the possibility for the existence of life. Let's move to another objection: poor or flawed designs. Some people argue that if the universe was designed by a creator, most especially a perfect creator, then the existence of natural disaster, diseases, and other imperfections in our universe is a proof against intelligent design by a perfect creator or an all-powerful creator. However, we would go further into this objection when we begin to look at the theological aspects on the origin of the universe and life. But there's still more we can look at on poor or flawed design. And we'll be looking at the human eye. The complexity of the human eye and the fact that all the components of the human eye has to be in existence before the human eye is functional is an argument against the theory of evolution. However, some scientists and biologists suggest that the human eye is poorly designed. They state that the human eye is poorly designed because for humans, we have our blood vessels in front of our retina. And this prevents more light from getting into our eyes, which will aid our eyesight even more. However, for sea creatures like octopuses, they have their blood vessels at the back of their retina, and this allows for more light to get into their eyes. But then, our blood vessels positioned in front of our retinas also act as a defense mechanism against UV light. However, for octopuses, they live in the water. The water is a great insulator against UV light. And so they don't need their blood vessels in front of their retina to protect their eyes from UV light. Some would even go as far as arguing that the human eye is not the best eye that exists among living species. There are birds that can see things at a farther distance than is possible with the human eyes. There are birds that can almost see 360 degrees of their environment. There are various living species that can see infrared light, heat signatures, and other things not visible to the human eye. Is this all as a result of flawed design? Not at all. The aim of the designer wasn't to design the best product with all of the best resources available. The designer designed each living species with all its required attributes necessary for its day-to-day living. Still exploring the design, let's move to our final objection against the case for intelligent design. We'll be looking at the Copernican Principle. The Copernican Principle is the idea that Earth does not hold a special or privileged position in the universe. It's a concept that extends the Copernicus' original heliocentric model to a universal scale. It suggests that our location and observation from Earth is representative of any other average point in the universe. Simply put, the Copernican Principle is just saying that life, including intelligent life, may exist somewhere else in the universe. And because the universe is so big and vast, we probably do not know about this. But then, when you begin to look at all the fine-tuned parameters and all that surrounds the continuous existence of the planet Earth and its support for life, that percentage of finding life elsewhere in the universe begins to dwindle drastically. Take for instance, in our universe, there are 3 types of galaxies, and this is based on their shape and look. We have the spiral galaxy, the elliptical galaxy, and the irregular galaxy. Because of the shape and other attributes of the spiral galaxy, it is most likely the only type of galaxy where planets with potential and sustenance of life can be formed. The percentage of spiral galaxies among all the galaxies that can be observed by astronomers is the smallest among all the galaxies that exist. This reduces the possibility of where other potential life forms can be found in the universe. When we go down into the spiral galaxy, it is not everywhere in the spiral galaxy that is suitable for planetary bodies to exist in order to permit and sustain life. According to science and cosmology, Earth happens to be in a place known as the Goldilocks zone. If many of such places existed in a single or any spiral galaxy, then it will not be called or considered the Goldilocks zone. But then we can look at the planetary bodies even in our solar system. We have Jupiter that prevents asteroids and other space debris from colliding with Earth. We have the atmospheric condition of the Earth that is suitable for life. We have liquid water on Earth. Liquid water is necessary for the sustenance of life. What about oxygen and the chemical components in our atmosphere? When you begin to consider all of these properties and requirements necessary for the existence and sustenance of life, the belief that life could probably exist at a random location anywhere in the universe begins to dwindle drastically. You would begin to recognize that Earth is placed in a special location and life, including intelligent life, is part of an intelligent design by an intelligent designer. In our next episode, we'll be looking at more questions and objections against the case for intelligent design. Our focus will be on exploring the designer. Thank you so much for listening thus far to the end of this episode. Remember, if you have questions, please put it in the comment section, or you can reach out to me on social media at Ezekarel. Ezekarel is spelled Ezekarel on Instagram or TikTok, and I would do my best to respond to your questions. Please share this podcast episode with your friends, with your family on your social media status, and I would really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening once again. Keep listening to AJ Sports with Ezekarel.